God bless y'all. You know, if we be honest with ourselves, I know I have, but have you ever felt like you were trying to do something right, but something kept pulling you back? Like no matter how much you wanted to change, you just kept ending back in the same place. Well, that's not just struggle, y'all. It's a pattern. And when we look at Exodus chapter 10 through 12, we start to understand why that pattern happens. So, moving into chapter 10, another plague comes, and this one, it doesn't just touch Egypt, it strips it, y'all. Now, the locusts, they cover the land, they eat everything that was left after the hail. The flax and the barley, they were already destroyed, but the wheat and spelt were still growing. So, when the locusts came, they finished everything that was left. In other words, nothing green remained, and the land was completely stripped by the locusts. And at this point, even Pharaoh's servants began to see it. They start asking, how long is this going to continue? Basically saying, don't you see Egypt is already destroyed? But even after all that, Pharaoh won't fully let the Israelites go, y'all. So Moses and Aaron, they come back and they say that they're all going this time. Young, old, sons, daughters, flocks, everything. Because they're going to serve the Lord. But instead of agreeing, Pharaoh, he responds with compromise. He says, you can go, but not completely. Only the men. Leave your children. Leave the flocks. And this is where it really hits. Because Pharaoh, he didn't say no. He didn't say that at all. He said yes, but not all the way. Now, what that reveals is he didn't want full obedience. He wanted partial obedience. He wanted control and leverage because if he could hold their children, he could always pull the rest of them back. You see, and when you think about that, that same pattern still shows up now. It's not always a hard no. Sometimes it's go, but not all the way. Stay connected, but not committed. And the truth is, partial obedience will still keep you bound. You have to be 100% applied to obedience, not just partial. So it's like trying to leave a place, but still leaving pieces of yourself behind. You walk out physically, but mentally and emotionally, you still tied to it. And anything still tied to it can pull you back. You walking away, but you leaving breadcrumbs. So when the locusts come, exactly as God said it would, and nothing green is left, Pharaoh calls Moses again, y'all, and admits he sinned. But then he says, forgive me this time. He kept saying the right words, but his heart never changed. That shows he wasn't looking for transformation. He was looking for relief. And as soon as the pressure is gone, his heart goes right back to the stubborn, prideful place that it was in the beginning. Then, right after that, the next thing that happens is darkness, y'all. God stretches his hand, and darkness covered Egypt for 3 days. And this isn't just night, y'all. This is the darkness so heavy they couldn't even see each other when they move. But at the same time, while Egypt sat in darkness, Israel, they still had light. So what that reveals is God knows how to separate his people even when everything around them is falling apart. Now, Pharaoh, he tries again and tells them to go serve the Lord. Go. But this time he says, leave your flocks behind. So once again, it's compromise, y'all. But Moses answers and says, not one hoof will be left behind. Because when you truly obey God, you don't negotiate what goes and what stays. You don't do that. Now, by this point, y'all, Pharaoh's heart is fully hardened. He moves from resisting to rejecting and then to threatening. He tells Moses not to come back because if he sees his face again, he will die. That's what Pharaoh told Moses. But instead of arguing, Moses, he just walks away because there comes a point where warnings stop and judgment flows. You can't keep giving the same person chances after chances, after, although Pharaoh was given those chances. So going on to chapter 11, y'all, God makes it clear that one more plague is coming. And this time Pharaoh, he won't just let them go. He will push them out, the Israelites. And at the same time, God gives the people favor, meaning he causes the Egyptians to look at them with kindness. And even Moses is respected amongst them, and even the servants respected Moses. Then at midnight, judgment falls. Every firstborn in Egypt dies, and there's a cry across the land like never before. But even in the middle of that, not even a dog moves its tongue, y'all, against Israel. In other words, there is complete peace in the middle of chaos. And that's God's protection. The dog didn't bark to alert the Israels. They slept through the night. Then, as you move into chapter 12, now everything shifts in this chapter because God resets their calendar and this becomes the first month. And what that means is deliverance isn't just leaving, y'all, it's becoming something new. So God tells them to choose a lamb, one per household, without blemish, meaning pure and without defect. Then they keep it until the 14th day, which shows preparation before sacrifice. After that, they applied the blood of the lamb to their doors, and they applied it with hyssop, hyssop, which was a small plant used like a brush, and that blood became the sign. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about who they were; it was about who covered them and what covered them. And when God saw the blood, He passed over them. That means when God covers you, it's not being held over your head anymore. It's not. Sorry, y'all. Then God gives them instructions on how to eat the lamb. It had to be roasted with fire, not raw and not boiled, because fire represents judgment and purification. So that was their first instruction. On top of that, the whole lamb had to be eaten, not partial, and nothing divided. And if anything remained, it had to be burned, meaning there was no holding on to what God already dealt with. Come on now, y'all. Now, along with that, they ate unleavened bread, meaning no yeast, because leaven spreads just like sin and compromise. So what God was really saying is don't just come out of Egypt. Make sure Egypt comes out of you. And at the same time, they had to be ready. They were dressed, shoes on, staff in hand. And when the Bible says gird your loins, it means prepare your actions so you can move quickly. Because they wore these long, like these long pieces, and they had to gather it up and tuck it in their belt so they wouldn't trip and fall and be ready to go. Because when God says move, y'all, you don't delay. And to put that into perspective, it's like being in a room where the door is already unlocked, but you're still sitting there because you've been told you can't leave. After a while, you stop checking and you start believing that you're stuck. And that's what bondage does. Even when freedom is right there, you don't move. You just stay there because of what you've been told. So when judgment finally comes, God passes through Egypt. But when He sees the blood, He passes over Israel. And that shows that protection isn't random, y'all. It's applied. Then God tells them to remember this forever and teach it to their children, because what God does shouldn't be forgotten. It should not be. And also that is to strengthen their faith in the future. And after 430 years, they leave exactly when God said, not early, not late, because God doesn't forget. But when you step back and you look at everything, here's what it all comes down to. God didn't just bring them out of Egypt. He wanted Egypt out of them. So reading these chapters, I thought of a question. Are we trying to leave, or are we ready to let it go? That's the question that came to mind, because you can't walk in freedom while holding on to what kept you bound. You can't partially obey and expect full deliverance, and you can't negotiate with God or with what God told you to release. Because when God delivers you, He doesn't do it halfway. The question is, are you ready to let go of everything He told you to leave behind? Or are you going to just continue to walk slowly, leaving breadcrumbs so you know your way back to where He brought you from?